How can we make the world better? By making ourselves better. The Dr. Joe Show explores how you can make positive personal change by using his groundbreaking and highly effective I Am approach to understand who we are and why we do what we do. Your small changes can have big effects.
Join us now for the Dr. Joe Show with Mark Stiles of Stiles Law, Thomas McCoy, and your host, Dr. Joe Schrand.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Dr. Joe Show.
Nailed it. Nailed it. Nailed it, Mark Stiles of Stiles Law. That was incredible. Lovely.
Thank you, Dr. Joe. I feel as though I had to step up my game because I heard maybe a Jersey accent or a Philly accent in the background, and I felt as though I had to go for it, you know, old school.
Love it. And you did. You went for it. It was great. It was great.
Thank you.
Tom, how's your week been? How's things going?
Well, Dr. Joe, my spirits are high, although I am in quite a bit of physical pain.
Why is that, Tom? What happened?
Perhaps I slept on it wrong. Perhaps I had poor form with a kettlebell swing, but my right shoulder / neck feels as though it's experienced a very deep paper cut, or perhaps has been shot by some sort of orcish arrow. I have been very deliberate in my movements throughout the day. I just finished a diet root beer that I had to lean back and just hold at my elbow at a right angle. It's kind of fun to just have those limitations.
Is it?
No.
Well, you're shouldering a lot.
Yeah, it's a...
Thank you.
I can't top that.
No. Well, you're a little... I mean, it sounds like you're a little out of joint. Sorry.
I can't keep up.
So, thank you, Ben. Thank you. Tom, can you please introduce our guest for tonight?
Yeah. She is a licensed clinical social worker who has spent more than 25 years working with individuals, couples, and families. She presently serves as the in-house therapist for the Discovery Channel in Silver Spring, Maryland. He is a partner in the Washington, D.C. metro law firm of Joseph Greenwald and Lake, Pennsylvania. PA? For more than a decade, he has been chosen as one of the area's top divorce lawyers by multiple publications and recognized as one of the best lawyers in America and a Washington, D.C. metro super lawyer. Oh, yeah, and they're married. Welcome, David and Julie Bulitt.
Yeah.
Well, you know, we're married.
Oh, yeah. 34 years.
Almost, what are we hitting 35, right? Is it 35 this year?
I don't know.
It'll be 35 in August.
Oh, that's fantastic.
I like to say the 17 happiest years of my life.
Nice.
That's
old joke.
Old joke. I can't let it pass.
It's how did you guys meet all those years ago?
Oh, now there's a story for you. So you wanted my perspective or yours?
So I was dating a guy that really was a jerk, and my girlfriend said, you know, like, he was supposed to call you a few hours ago. If he doesn't call you like soon, then you're going out with me. So I said, okay, I'm going to go out and I'm going to meet somebody else. So we went to a party. It was a fraternity house at the University of Maryland. We were both at University of Maryland. And needless to say, I was drinking a little bit of gin and tonics, and like two for one. 2 for 1.
That meant 4 when you were 2.
Yeah. So anyway, he walked in with a friend. The girlfriend that I was with knew the guy he was with. And I said, oh, that guy is so cute. And she goes, I know the guy he's with. We went running over. And it was love at first sight for me. And
well, we talk about this in our book. For her, it was love at first sight. For me, it was a whole different kind of reaction. But yes, it was definitely, it began with an L and ended with more of lust at first sight.
Yeah.
So we met in college.
Yeah, met in college. So
wow.
I was 18, turning 19. Yeah.
Yeah, then I was a senior, so I was 22, I guess.
Yep.
Love it.
34 years. I'm not sure I've ever met a divorce attorney who's been married.
Well, I will tell you this, and people ask me about that, and the reality is that, aside from the fact we have a good relationship anyway, after a day of doing what I do, I don't have much left in the tank to argue. So, you know, if she wants to, you know, put a birdhouse on top of the roof, I put a birdhouse on top of the roof. You want the kid to dress in green and pink and orange and black. I don't do whatever you want to do. We're going to have yogurt for dinner for a week. Sure. It doesn't matter. Seriously though, it helps you appreciate what you do have when you see what others don't. So, and I mean, come on, how much better could I do? The answer is no.
There you go. My parents did get divorced. It was actually an important part of my growing up here. But my mother always said she was a divorcee, but always wanted to be a widow. So, it was a great line.
Yeah, that's a good line too.
Yeah, it's a good line.
Pass that one along.
Yeah,
It's good. So, you also have an incredible book. Do you want to just tell us a little bit about your wonderful book, 5 Core Conversations for Couples? I really want to explore this throughout the night.
So this was hatched, I guess, 4 or 5 years ago. We're sitting on the beach and we started talking and laughing about things that we've been through and lived through, and in some cases not laughing, but remembered some of the difficult things. And it struck me that maybe we could do something with it. I had written 2 novels that had been published before, fiction books. And so I said, let's see, maybe we can figure something out. So I literally had kept a bunch of notes for years, so just on things that had happened, funny things that she had said, because she's quite the character, by the way. And so we started going back through that. We remembered some of the things that happened, some of the stories we had, and we started to build this sort of multicultural, but it really is, because with me as a divorce lawyer and her as a therapist, different ways of looking at relationships and different ways at looking at what causes problems and what fixes problems. So that was kind of the birth of it. On the beach, one afternoon, we ended up staying there for 3 or 4 hours, just sort of banging it around, and that's what led to the start of the book.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I mean, I think fixing problems is one of the most important things that we can do. And so let's get right into it. We're talking about the 5 core conversations. What is there an order to them, or there is?
So if you think about a relationship, and I don't know about Thomas and Mark, whether you're married or not, but I know Dr. Joe, you are. And so you think about a relationship, right? And the first piece is the building, the filling the relationship. Is it going to work? If it's going to work, how do we have those building blocks?
Is it a good foundation?
Is it a good foundation? What do we do to build it, fill it up, and make it grow? And then you think about the 3 main areas of conflict in any relationship, right? Money, kids, sex. So there's the 3 others. And the last one is sort of a catch-all, that we call it's a balancing act, in which we have a lot of conversations and talk a lot about. And my golden retriever too.
I love it.
You're all about this.
Yeah.
I'm going to go.
No, I'm telling you, he's right in there with the core conversations.
We talk a lot about how to manage the I versus the we, and that it shouldn't be a versus. That people say there's no I in team, right? But we say there is an I in us, and there is an I in we, and there has to be. There's not that traditional, we're all, we're married, we're one heart, one soul. We don't buy into that ourselves. We just don't. So those are your 5 big core areas. Okay. And what the book does is it breaks all those areas down into multiple conversations that we've had in those particular areas over roughly 30, when the book was written, about 30 years worth of marriage.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Of course, there's no I in sex either, I suppose.
Well, there can be.
Depends. Plus the birth of the porn industry.
Yeah.
How true.
And we do cover that in the core it's called Bumping and Grinding, and there's a whole sex several chapters.
We talk about pornography,
and we do because it's porn plays a part in relationships, in keeping relationships together sometimes, and also tearing them apart. I mean, David, of course, has people that have gotten divorced over porn, and I've dealt with it in my office. How to navigate that if somebody is interested in the other person maybe isn't. It can be an issue. So of course we're jumping right into the sex thing. That's like,
Sorry about that. I'm a psychiatrist. What can I say? Let's just cut through all the resistance.
All right,
Let's
Dr.
go right
Floyd,
to the core.
Yeah,
Right to the
no,
core.
but I mean, so sex is obviously a big topic that, is important for both keeping relationships together, but it also can break people up for, a lot of times too. So.
And it's still about respect, right? I mean, it comes down to respect. Let's back up. I didn't mean to jump ahead.
It's okay.
I want to go to that first step. What are the foundations that you would recommend for a strong relationship that's going to be able to withstand whatever happens?
Well, I think that the main that one, people ask me like, what are the most important things, as a therapist in a relationship? And I say communication and connection. Those are two really, really big things for me. So if you are able to communicate with your partner, and communication doesn't always mean sitting down and having a face-to-face discussion at the appropriate time. Communication can be nonverbal. It can also be realizing when is the right time to talk to somebody and when is the wrong time to talk to somebody, right? And when to take a break, because you might be angry or you might lash out or be saying things that are not okay to say, or hurtful. So communication isn't always, this neat little package. But it's an important part. And it's doing the hard things, having hard conversations and not being afraid of doing that. And then the other piece that we talk about throughout the book is connection and making sure that you stay connected. And we see a lot of couples that, sort of put the relationship on hold. They have kids, they get too busy, they're busy with jobs, they're busy with careers, and they think that they can just kind of come back to it on the weekend, so to speak, or after the kids are grown. And that just doesn't work. So I think if I could pick two things, it would be communication and connection in relationships.
Yeah. Mark, you are married. Tom, you're
That I am.
going to be one day. So what do you think? Is anything to apply here, or?
Yeah, I mean, there's everything, right? It's
Put you on the spot here. I love doing this. My favorite moment.
It's amazing.
Hi, Julie. You listening? It's great.
Yeah.
Is your wife named Julie?
I'd like to take that opportunity to ask a question.
Sure.
And COVID.
Yeah.
Did that spike your business?
Whose business? Julie's or mine?
Well, both. Well, you're a marriage counselor too, right, Julie? Yeah.
Yes.
Both.
Yeah. I do. Yeah. I would say yes. It's spiked a lot of couples having difficulties, and it definitely has spiked your business. But there's also been some enhancements to relationships with COVID too.
I mean, we had we do some op-eds now and again. We put an article in the Baltimore Sun, and it sort of arose out of in some way that we're going to miss you, and because a lot of people have taken the time to take a breath, right. and do things that you didn't otherwise do or you didn't take the time to do, and so. I think that in a lot of ways, COVID's been a good thing for people who were open to it being a good thing. Then we had the people, so we get some emails and stuff. We had the one woman who wrote us who said that, she can't get a minute alone. She's writing to us from her closet, kind of thing.
Yeah.
She's pooped up. That's the only place she can be by herself because her husband's there, her kids are there, everybody's working or in school, not in school. And it's a difficult, hopefully very unique time that we won't have to live through again. There's my golden retriever with a squeak.
Yeah, he brought a squeaky toy.
I love it.
Great.
Yeah, so I think that both the good stuff is definitely come out of COVID. People slowing down, spending more time together, and then of course, it magnifies if you don't get along, if you were out of the house on purpose because you couldn't stand your partner. and all of a sudden you're thrown together, and it makes things more magnified for better or worse.
Yeah, but from a divorce lawyer standpoint, what happened was obviously people had no place to go, right? So folks who were thinking of separating, first of all, courts were closed for here in Maryland and the district for all intents and purposes for 3.5, 4 months, shut down, done, other than emergencies and that sort of thing. And so there was no ability to file for divorce, to move forward that way. And if somebody's thinking of leaving, where the hell are you going? Because all their apartments are closed. No one's letting you in. You can't look at houses. It was so from that perspective, it was a very interesting time for those of us who are divorce lawyers who need to find ways to think outside the box. And there he is with a squeak toy.
I love it. It's great. Bella's probably going to come in with her squeak toy too.
So it's like the War of the Roses kind of.
Yeah, you know what? That's exactly right. Without all the drama, no one was hanging from. Well, I don't know. Maybe they were. Was hanging from chandeliers, and probably not that many of us look like Michael Douglas, but that's a whole different.
You know, your story about the foundation, when Carol and I were first married, and we already had, let's see, I was in my first year of residency. And so as a first year resident, sometimes we would be in the hospital for 72 hours straight, straight up doing whatever we needed to do. And then I would come home, and Carol had been home with 2 babies, Sophie, who was maybe 2.5 by that time, and Jason, who was a newborn. And it was, I think, one of the only times in our lives where we were just at each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we realized that it wasn't us. It's that she was exhausted from her work with the kids, and I was exhausted from my work trying to save some lives. And when we got together, we just didn't have anything to give each other.
Yeah, you were empty.
Well, the tank was empty.
Yeah.
But we spoke about that, but we talked about that.
Right. So what you did was make it not about, it wasn't a personal thing. It wasn't that you didn't, care for her or want to spend time with her. It was just that your tank was empty. And honestly, the last part, that 5th core, which is a balancing act, is a lot about that, filling your tank and making sure that you're ready to be in a relationship, and that you are doing things for yourself so that you can be part of the couple.
I mean, we have 4 daughters, right? And so it was not at all unusual. Certainly in the earlier days of our marriage, there was no internet, right? There was, computers were there, but there were the big giant boxes. There was no email. And so I was, I'm in the office every day, and you come home, and she looks like she's ready. If there was a shotgun, she'd put it to me, and then she'd put it to her own. I'm being facetious, but we were able to sort of see that in each other. You needed that time. So
I used to
get in the tub.
He would come home, and honestly, I would hand him the kids.
She'd be mad if I got a haircut. Right?
Because I didn't even get to go to the bathroom by myself. Why should you get a haircut?
Right.
But yeah, so it was, we did things, but we communicated about it. So he would come home, he would see that I was done. I would say, I gotta go. I'd, go to the CVS to buy a nail polish or, some errand just so I could get out of the house. And, but we worked it out, and we talked about it. And, that's part, he didn't take it like, oh, I just came home from a busy day at work and you're, expecting me to do more. We discussed it. He knew that I was spent too, and this wasn't me, taking it out on him. It was what I needed.
Yeah, absolutely. Communication is everything, and being able to say, I need to take a break. Don't take it personally. It's crucial. Communication is everything. Without communication, we wouldn't survive as a species. This was probably our greatest invention ever as human beings, was to figure out how do we communicate with each other, not to each other, not at each other, but with each other.
Yeah.
So we spoke a bit about that foundation. Where do we go next?
So from there, we drift. We go to we move to money, which we call money. I stole from I can't remember the Motown group that did
Money.
Money.
I can't remember. Oh, the OJ. It was the OJs. That's
Okay,
right. The OJs, who actually was a Philadelphia group for you. Anybody who's from Pennsylvania. I know, Mark, somebody mentioned Pennsylvania earlier. But and then from there we go to parents and partners, and then from there to the bumping and grinding, which is our little riff on the sex stuff. But
yeah.
But so money, of course, is one of those three for anyone. Like I said, for anyone who's been in a relationship for more than 6 minutes.
Yeah.
Money is an issue.
Yeah.
Money is one of those places that we find conflict. Mm-hmm. Spending it, saving it, giving it, making it, hiding it.
Yep.
Is a significant issue. And what we do in our book, which I think is different from, and there's a lot of books right on this shelf about self-help, relationships, communication, that sort of thing. But what we do that's different is that not only do we try to sort of talk about it, but we talk about it in a very personal way. And Julie and I went through some significant money financial issues. One, which was caused primarily because we were stupid and we stuck our head in the sand and said, who cares? Well, we can buy that. We'll worry about it later. And the second, which was primarily driven by one of our kids who had some significant mental health issues. And we went and dug every dollar we could dig to try to help her. So, but we talk a lot about money and how you can sort of work your way around those issues in the book.
Yeah. So I had read this book. I don't know, at some point called The Secret. I don't know if you guys ever heard of that book.
Don't do it. It doesn't work.
Well, so the secret was all about like what you put out into the universe just works out. And it was great. So I took that principle to heart and I was like, oh yeah, we should just buy that because we'll find a way to pay for it. And like keeping up with the Joneses. And listen, when you have 4 kids and we live in an area that's, affluent-ish, and so there's lots of things that you can do. You can do private school, you can make sure the kids have soccer lessons and gymnastics lessons and competitive blah blah blah. And so we kind of got into that, and we really got ourselves into a bad situation.
The funny thing is, right, that while we were believing in the secret, the people who were sending us the bills had nothing to do with the secret. There was no secret to them.
There was no secret. Yeah. So we sort of, there was a series. It wasn't just us believing that things would just work out, but there was a business decision that he had made that wasn't a great business decision, and blah 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 blah. So we're
bring that up again.
Yeah, we do. I call it a student loan. When you make a bad mistake that costs you a lot of money, I call it a student loan, right? Way to put it. Yeah, you learn from it. So we were struggling and we were trying to just figure out how to do it. And so we sat down and I got that book, Dave Ramsey's book, and it's money debt. I don't know. It was with a debt diet.
Total Money Makeover.
Yes, the Money Makeover. Yes, thank you. And I did the snowball thing. I made first of all, I want to say that I got the book out of the library because that was the first step. You don't buy it, right? Because buying is not in the debt diet kind of thing. So we got the book and I said, listen, this is what we got to do. We got to follow whatever this guy says and we've got to work on this. And we made some really big decisions and big like cuts and whatever. And he had bought me this beautiful mint green T-Bird for my 40th birthday. And it was sweet. I mean, really convertible, it was great. I drove that thing around and it was great.
Sunglasses on, one, and the whole
it was a lot of fun.
It was worth every penny at the time.
So we had this car, and then I, of course, had 4 kids. So that was my second car, right? I had to have a bigger car. So anyway, we had to sell the car to be able to put, to help one of our kids get to a private school because she had special needs and whatever. So that was kind of like the beginning of like reality, like, you got to do some hard things. So that was one of the many, we have a chapter that's called Fun Till Reality Takes Your T-Bird Away.
And thanks to the Beach Boys for that.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. So, we just really talk about, what we went through, how we dug down as a couple, how we communicated, we fought, about this.
Yeah.
Like he was like, well, you need to stop doing this. And I'd be like, well, you need to stop playing golf and do it, tit for tat.
Yeah. So that gets into the other, and again, the book is broken down in all these conversations that we had, right? So that gets to this balance of power kind of idea, where if you think about, back during the Cold War, Russia had a stockpile of 5,000 nuclear warheads, so we had to have 5,002, right? And so it was after some amount of time, we started to figure out I started to figure out, because she doesn't read history, about history, but it was the same kind of thing, right? So I went to play golf, and it cost me $60. So she would say, okay, well, you spent $6 on golf. I'm going to spend 70 going to Nordstrom. Well, you spent 70. I'm going to spend 8. And before you know it, it just doesn't end. It keeps snowballing.
Yeah. So anyway, that got us in trouble. So anyway, we share a little bit about that piece and about, money. But really, money means different things to different people. I mean, that's the bottom line. In relationships, there's very few times that everybody has the same value around exactly how they should spend their money, exactly what money means to them. And therefore it causes, problems in relationships. And David sees it in his office. I see it in my office, and it's a biggie.
So the solution?
Talking about it.
Yeah.
Being open.
Line, being open, trying to take a breath and take the time to be on the same page. Mark, you asked a little bit about my practice as a divorce lawyer. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've talked to people who just don't know their financial circumstances because my husband, my wife, they handle it. I use my card, I go to the grocery store, I don't worry about it. But you need to know. I mean, even if that works for you and your relationship, you should know what's going on. You should know where we have things, where we owe things, what our mortgage is, what our utility bills cost, that sort of thing. So it's not a bad thing. Some people think it's threatening, right? Well, she wants to know how much I paid for this or that, but that's silly. I think it's silly. I think being aware of what you have and what you need is a good thing.
And being honest about it, because there is a lot of deceit. People often don't know, or will say, "Oh, I didn't even know we were in such bad shape." Like, David has. There's a chapter called "The Repo Man," and this woman, had her car repossessed, and she didn't even know that they were not as wealthy as she thought she was. And it's difficult. So, having conversations about money, asking about money, and negotiating.
So it sounds like there has to be that first foundation, the communication and the trust, and then not to be ashamed if you don't have the money. The money isn't the only criteria for how much you are valued.
Absolutely. You're 100% right. And people come to that issue very differently, right? I might have been raised in a family that didn't have anything. You don't want to listen to Abraham Lincoln. I walked to school with no shoes, that kind of thing. But I didn't. And our daughter's married to a young man who's amazing, but was raised in a very, very different culturally. And so things that she may have thought was nothing, he may have looked at and said, wow, that's really a big thing to him.
Yeah.
And people come to that from different places, and I think you need to realize that we aren't all raised in the same roof, under the same roof.
Yeah. And money is power, in relationships too, and it can be. So that it plays out in that way as well.
It's interesting because there's so much value that we do not reimburse for. I mean, Carol has been the most incredible mom, and that's why I'm blessed to say that we have incredible kids. And the government isn't paying for that. Who pays for that? I mean, but it's so much more than just money. And I think that's part of why value is so important. It's the core of the I am approach, that everybody wants the same thing. We just want to feel valued by someone else. And that is beyond just money.
No question.
Absolutely.
No question about it.
So we have an up and coming topic that I'd like to talk about. Sorry about that. Sex. It is.
Man.
You get that? Forget it. Yeah.
I'm good with that.
Good. Thank you.
Up and coming.
We were so close to going the whole hour.
Yeah. Sorry. Sorry. So yes, it's such an important part of any relationship. Let's spend the last few minutes talking about that.
Sure.
Where do you want to start?
Well, let's start at the beginning, right? This is a topic that is close to me, because Julie, I think, you know, and I make jokes about this, we talk about this in the book, that she sort of thinks I'm a one-trick pony, right? You know, a little action once or twice a week. I don't need anything else, and I'm happy as a clam. I can live my life in utter peace. And she's right.
Great.
She's pretty much right.
He's pretty easy.
She's pretty much right. But sex is a very, in my practice, sex is an area where people constantly bump and grind, and that's the name of the section in our book, because people have.
Did you say the name of the section?
A section.
Yes,
a section.
section.
Oh, the section.
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 You know, you're a very funny guy for someone who wears a sweater vest.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
and he's a psychiatrist.
Yeah, it's even worse.
I'm very impressed.
Yeah.
But you know, sex is a place that people have an endless amount of conflict. It's how much, right? How often? What do we do? How do we do it?
Power. It's power. It's power.
It's used to manipulate.
He wasn't nice, so I'm not going to have sex with him. You know, those kinds of things.
So I use a metaphor, right? Remember the old Meatloaf song? I'm waiting for the end of time so I can end my time with you, right? You remember that line? And I can't remember the name of this. It was Paradise by the Dashboard Lights,
Yeah.
right? So if you put a room of 500 people together, Dr. Joe, who you know, couples, whoever they are, and you say to those people, I want all you people who are happy in your sexual relationship to raise your hand. Wouldn't be a lot of hands raised, probably. Number one. And number two, if you ask those people if you're happy in if your sexual relationship is good, are you happy in your marriage? That would be 100%. Or 99%, I think, of the positive responses to question number one. And it's not the only thing.
No, it's
but
not.
What I say is, and what I've always said, excuse the pun, but it's the grease that keeps the wheel turning in a lot of ways. Not for everyone.
Yeah. No, and let me
Relationship is
just, and
different.
I do like to caution, because I have worked with couples that are in sexless marriages for different reasons. You know, there's sometimes there's medical reasons, and sometimes there's emotional reasons. So there are definitely couples that are happy, that do well in relationships that don't have sex. So I don't, you know, I just want to, like, that's my little asterisk kind of thing. But overall, communication is done through sex in a lot of ways. Connection is through sex. So when you think about deepening relationships, sex is an important part. And being vulnerable and trust and all those things that go along with it. So again, you know, I work with couples that are having difficulty, you know, in the bedroom, and David certainly sees couples that are divorcing in part because sex hasn't been what they wanted it to be.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's like I said, it's not. I don't think it's one of the spokes. I think it's I think it's more of a hub in a lot of ways. Because it's not a cure-all, right? You know, and you would know, Dr. Joe, more than I would. It doesn't cure everything, but it certainly doesn't hurt. It's like, I want my daughter to marry someone who has money. Right, you know, it's the old days, right? Back the old days that we would say, I want our child to marry someone who's got a good job. Well, it didn't cure things. It doesn't it doesn't ensure success, but it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt that I'm attracted to her. And by the way, who wouldn't be? Just saying.
Just keep on drinking, honey.
No, but I mean, it doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
And so I think people have to be more sensitive to that. I represent a lot of folks, who where that's a problem.
Yeah. It is. Yeah.
But there is a power component to it, isn't there, as well?
Yeah. Absolutely. Like I said, money is one piece of it. Sex is another. Those are two very common places to gain, or take away power.
Yeah. And again, from a sort of evolutionary perspective, I mean, it's one of the things that kept us going as a social animal.
Mm-hmm.
But is there a difference between the way a man approaches it and a woman approaches it, in the sense that have you had couples where the woman wants to have sex? I think we always think of it as, the man really wants it and the woman says, no. But there are times where that's reversed, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Yeah. And very often in relationships, there's a discrepancy, a discrepancy for desire.
By the way, I'm not in that type of, I'm just.
No, I know. Just want to clarify that.
Very often there's a discrepancy. It's like how much water do you drink? How thirsty are you? Do you and your partner drink the same amount of water? Probably not, So if you looked at it that way, there's probably very few couples that are drinking the same exact amount of water every day.
Yeah.
Right. So you have to work it out. What does it mean? Do you take it personally? How do you work it out in that way?
And do you find that it changes as either the marriage goes on or the people get older?
Yeah, it does. I mean, like someone will say, oh, look at them. They must have just met each other, or they're not married, or they've only been married a certain period of time. And my response always is, so what? Whatever got you together, why shouldn't you? And I understand, listen, familiarity breeds contempt is an expression that's lived for thousands of years for a reason, because it does. But it shouldn't, I don't think, in a relationship, in a marriage, or in a sexual relationship. Yeah. Why shouldn't you hold hands at 60 like you did when you were 21?
Yeah.
Why not?
And listen, it does change. I mean, the excitement, changes it just does, but you have to work at it to make sure that you're still connecting in that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a couple in couples therapy, and they were wonderfully in love with each other. They had some things that they needed to work out. And the wife turned to the husband and said, do you remember when we were younger? She had arthritis at this point. She was like in her mid-60s. She said, do you remember when we were younger and I would wake up flexible and you would wake up stiff? And now I wake up stiff and you're flexible. So I thought it was a great line.
Yeah. That's true. But
yeah.
Right, you have to work out on,
maybe you can be stiff and flexible.
Right. But what they were doing was showing humor. Yeah. That they were using humor as a way to address whatever the conflicts were, is they would then use humor, and all of that limbic emotion and anger would just sort of subside. They had a wonderful way of addressing each other and the conflicts that they would have. Humor was a huge part. We've got a few minutes left. The I am approach, the idea that we are always doing the best we can at every moment in time, influenced by 4 domains: the home, the social, the biological, and the I see, the way I see myself, the way I think other people see me. Because the 4 domains interconnect, a small change can have a big effect. You don't need to change everything. Mm-hmm. So what small change could you recommend to our listeners so that they can have a more rewarding relationship?
Well, I mean, I would promote having conversations, communicating with each other. And I always tell people, even if you're not great at it, even if it's hard for you, start. It's sort of like a muscle. And as you practice it and get used to it, it can grow and get bigger and get easier and get better and get stronger. So, bring up something that's hard, that maybe isn't like the biggest deal, but just to kind of get practice and talk about it. So, I mean, that's what our book's about is conversations. After each core conversation, we have something called couples Kickstarters, which are questions for couples. So when you read about parenting or you read about sex or you read about money.
And in the last couple of seconds, you control no one, you influence everyone. You get to choose the kind of influence you want to be. David and Julie Bulitt, what kind of influence do you want to be?
Everyone has problems. Everyone has issues. Don't look on the television and think they don't. Don't look at Facebook and think everything is great. You are not alone. We all have troubles. We all have issues. It's how you deal with them that matters.
Terrific. We will be posting your website. We'll be posting how to get to the book. Folks, thanks so much. Ben, we'll see you next week. Tom, I hope your shoulder feels